Our main speaker, Blake from Santa Barbara.
I'm Blake, I'm an alcoholic. Thanks for having me, guys. Scott, thanks for asking me to come speak, I think. You were there when I was like brand new, fresh, out of jail. I landed at Scott's, one of Scott's sober livings in Santa Barbara, and you're an important part of my recovery, dude. I love you a lot. Thanks to all my guys for coming up tonight. I got a good little support team with me. My road dog, Darren, rolled up with me. This guy took some time out of a Saturday 8 years ago to hang out with a shaky newcomer and hit him between the eyes with the truth. And he took me through the steps, and he saved my life. And I love you, dude. It's good to see. It's good to. Usually, I'm sitting there listening to him. So, I'm grateful for Alcoholics Anonymous. Welcome to the new people. I hope you found what I found here. AA saved my life, for sure. It's kind of an understatement. It gave me like a new way to appreciate life. It gave me a life to appreciate. And I don't think I'd be drawing breath if it wasn't for this program. I'll take care of the business. So I have a sobriety date. It's November 16th, 2017. I have a home group. It's the Junkyard Dogs. Wolf, guys. Men's study group. We meet on Wednesday nights at 8 p.m. in Santa Barbara. Come check us out. I have a sponsor whose name's Luis. He knows he's my sponsor. I talked to him this morning. I got current with him about some stuff that I needed to, especially before I stood at the podium tonight, you know. And yeah, man, I love to drink. I'm a drinking machine. I grew up in Western Colorado to a really nice family, upper middle class, like suburbia. My parents were like very involved in my life, really loving and supportive. I got good grades. I played sports. Really like kind of an idyllic childhood in a lot of ways. It took up until the last few years to see, like, I grew up in a very alcoholic household. You know, not seeing, I didn't see a lot of belligerence, but there was a lot of infidelity. There was a lot of, like, secrets. There was a lot of don't tell anybody what's happening behind closed doors. Maintain the facade. I remember my dad always having beers in the center console on the weekends. It was just kind of a work hard, play hard, environment. And I remember like driving around to bars looking for my dad with my mom when I was real small. And I said something like, "Oh, my teacher's not gonna believe this." And my mom's like, never tell anybody about this. And I don't think that there's probably a genetic component to my alcoholism for sure. I don't think that stuff makes me an alcoholic, but it made me comfortable in that environment, and it made me good at like maintaining the facade, or decent at it. It made that a priority, I should say, which came in handy later, as my life started to fall apart from my drinking. So yeah, things were great. I was kind of late to the party, so to speak. A lot of my friends were drinking and like smoking weed at a pretty young age. And I waited till I think I was 16 the first time I really got after it. And, I was a really self-conscious kid. Spent a lot of time in my head. I was like kind of skinny and small. And like one weekend, my cousin, his buddy that had a fake ID got us a 12-pack of Corona, and we had some girls over, and it was magic, dude. I had a few beers, and like I instantly just became like 10 pounds more handsome and charismatic, and became like the life of the party and the jokester, and like had a lot of confidence around women, and hooked up with this girl. It was kind of the farthest base I'd gotten to at that point, and it was like this amazing night. And the Chronic 2001 had just come out. And like I was like, damn, like music sounded so good and the colors were brighter, and I kind of always had this feeling like there was cooler stuff happening somewhere else, and that's where I should be. And when I copped that little buzz off, 3 Coronas, I was there. I was like in the center of that, and I was sold, And up until then, I'd been kind of scared of like the party scene, and now I understood what it was about. And I wanted to feel that way as often as possible, so I did. And up to that point in my like school and sports career, those had really been like the focal points. I got good grades, and I played all the sports and was always doing something after school. And like, I think that was kind of paired with my parents breaking up and having this big divorce, and like so. Things changed, and like I got into the party scene. I became a party guy. And it was great. It was a lot of fun. I mean, there was like not even slaps on the wrist back then, really. So we moved out here when I was halfway through high school. My mom, my little brother, and I, after like a gnarly divorce with my folks. And I thought I would just come out here for a year and then go back and graduate with all my buddies. And I just fell in love with Santa Barbara. Got introduced to like really good weed for the first time, and made some party friends, and like was just living this like movie life that drinking was the centerpiece of, and rolled with that. Graduated high school kind of barely. Ended up going to a state college, and then wound up at UCSB through some miracle and transfer program, and like it was party time. I studied an easy subject because I was just I was interested in just getting after it as hard as possible. And at this point, it's like I'm starting to get hit with like an MIP here, and like peeing in public and stuff. So there's a little bit of consequences happening, and the scales are just like starting to shift a little bit, but nothing major, And ended up graduating from UCSB somehow, and got a job in the wine industry. I live with a bunch of dudes. One of them was a chef, and his dad had a big wine cellar, and so we started like cracking into his bottles. And I was into food, and like I was really interested in wine, and it wasn't just for the effect produced. Like I was actually interested in evaluating wine and kind of geeking out on it. And so I got a job in the wine industry, and like, it was great. At this point, like, I was a blackout drinker. I remember the first time that I had been told about blacking out. It was alarming. My friends had a house downtown, and the next day, 2 of my buddies were like, "Dude, do you remember what happened last night?" And I had no recollection. And they're like, "Dude, you you said this, and then you like grabbed this girl, and everyone, like all the girls left," and like I was mortified. It was really scary. It was the first time that had happened. From that night on, blacking out became a regular thing for me. And it's like that line in the Big Book, the alcoholic life becomes the only life that I knew. Like I just kind of, I don't know, that just became a normal thing for me. I had no idea what an alcoholic was until I got to AA. I thought it meant that you were like homeless or, drank out of a flask in the morning or something. And it turns out that there's a couple parts to it. There's a physical aspect to it where like I have a physical allergy to alcohol. When I put it in my bloodstream, it's like no longer up to me how much I take. And that was obvious at the end of my drinking, but it was present from the beginning, really. I was usually the drunkest guy at the party from the get-go. I regularly had to be like babysat and looked after. But it was like cute, and it was fun for the most part, aside from a night here and there where I got, told about, "Dude, the girls left because of your behavior." It was cute. I was entertaining. And the other part of it is the mental obsession. And like, again, like at the tail end of my drinking, we'll get there. I'm jumping ahead a little bit. It was really obvious for me to see how, regardless of like the body of evidence I had, of what happened when I drank, I'm going to take another drink. And that was present from the get-go too, because I never said, I'm not going to drink tonight, I've got school tomorrow, or something to that effect that my hard drinking friends would say. I've got this going on tomorrow, so I'm drinking. Never saying no to it. So I'm working in the wine industry. I'm keeping like my, weekday wine evaluation sipping separate from my blackout, pee my pants on my phone regularly, drinking, and it was working fine, so I thought, and got hit with like DUI number 1 and then DUI number 2. But that was like par for the course, especially in the wine industry. I mean, every winemaker's got at least like one, It's just bad luck. At no point in time, so now I'm like starting to, show up for more serious charges in the courtroom, and like, my reputation's taken a little bit bigger of a hit. Like things, the scales are shifting. Gradually, things are getting a little bit worse. And at no point in time was stopping drinking like ever an option, ever even a consideration, Not even. I mean, maybe after DUI 2, I might have not drank the next day, or maybe for a couple days, or maybe had some moment of clarity where it's like, man, this is causing quite a bit of problems in my life, but it's just like, drinking, I think drinking was just offering too much, And I don't know if non-alcoholics have that, along with the allergy and the mental obsession. I don't know if they get what I get out of drinking. Like, it's a power greater than myself. It's a connection to like something bigger than me. I don't know if that's normal shit. So, that's how it went for a few years. And like I said, my reputation in my industry was kind of taking a hit. There's a lot of like kind of drunkards in the wine industry, but it was definitely negatively affecting like my business and my reputation. But things were working out. I'd go to my DUI class and stop on the way home and get a 6-pack or whatever, Went to an AA meeting in Lompoc. It was a great meeting. I was mortified. What didn't stand up is new. No way I'm talking to anybody. Got my court card signed by my girlfriend. Had like an inkling suspicion that this was a stupid idea. And things went along that way for a while. And I think things could have continued that way for a while, where I'm just kind of like suffering some minor repercussions from drinking. Maybe I die a few years before my time or something. But that's not what happened. And what happened was some other big life stuff happened that helped kind of change the course of my drinking a little bit. And I'll get into it. And it was my little brother was a severe alcoholic and eventually became like an intravenous drug addict. And he was pretty gnarly, like from a young age. I remember staying with him in LA. He was probably 22 or something. And I was staying at his house, and he woke up to go to work and like just hammered like 3 quadruple vodkas on the rocks and like ripped a couple bong loads, took a Xanny, and he's like, all right, I'll see you after work. And I remember his hand was trembling when he was like pouring the vodka. And I'd seen that in movies and kind of heard about it. I'd never had like the DTs or anything like that. I was just like a weekend warrior, And that was, it got my attention. And so cut to just a few years later, he was really in it bad. And he had a little bit of sober time in LA, in West Hollywood, and had a gnarly relapse and was up for 6 days. And at the tail end of it, he was in this situation where we thought he was safe and he was about to be taken into either custody or the hospital, and he managed to hang himself. And he survived the hanging attempt, like barely. It was like super touch and go for 10 days, then 2 months, then a year, then 3 years, and he was left like horribly brain damaged from the suicide attempt. So he was in a semi-conscious state. So he was like, he was cognitively aware of what was going on, but he was locked in his body. And it was gnarly, man, and I was mad at him, and my drinking changed. It just did. Like I kind of went from like a bar drinker, party guy to leaning into it for a new reason. And I'd been doing work, man. I'd put in work for a good 10 years. Like I was exercising my alcoholism before then. I was already on my way, but it just kicked it up into high gear. And, leaning into my alcoholism for like that escapism and stuff, things rapidly changed for me. And it was kind of effective for a while because I just wasn't in acceptance of like the situation at all. I felt like it shouldn't have happened, and I was pissed, and so I just would get fucked up. I would just get really drunk after work, and it kind of worked for a while. And I worked as an assistant winemaker at this kind of hot shit winery for a few years, and I had started my own label that had some like steam behind it, and I was like a up and coming, star winemaker of Santa Barbara County, and I quit my job as an assistant winemaker to like just take on my own clients and do my own thing, which was like the beginning of the end, because now I had like no real responsibility except for my own stuff to do. And man, I just drank a lot, and I found somebody that kind of would tolerate me and help support my booze habit and like let me, stay at her pad a lot. And I started doing weird stuff that I'd never done before. Like I started lying about my drinking. I started like gulping bottles behind her back and learning how to set them down real gently on the liquor cabinet. And I was starting to get shaky in the morning. And just like Bill, man, like alcohol, it ceased being a luxury. It became a necessity. And pretty soon I noticed that like I could take a little shot of Fernet or vodka in the morning and like calm my nerves, muscle down a banana and like a Perrier, and then go to the winery. And as soon as I got to the winery, I had a pitcher of topping wine I could walk around with for 2 hours in the morning and just like nurse off that, or all day, and just be ragged by the end of the day and like bloodshot in the face, and rinse, repeat. Buy a pack of cigarettes on the way home, blackout, wake up late, find my pants and my boots, and just do it again. And did that for a while. Gradually things fell apart, needless to say. Lost a few clients, reputation, really started to tank. I'm like passing out in restaurants and bars in this tiny little wine community where like there's no degrees of separation. If you go do something dumb, someone is gonna see it. And I lost my first client. It was just kind of like, good, I can just more time doing what I want to do. And so that continued to happen. And I woke up one morning, and it was during harvest. So if in the wine industry, like you pick all the fruit at one specific time of the year, and you turn the grapes into wine. So it's a really busy season. It can be like a month and a half or 3 months, depending on how much wine you're making or whatever. So it was the middle of harvest, or actually it was towards the end of harvest. I'd been on like a 3-day sick one, because now this is what my drinking looked like. I would like lose days, wake up and not know really which day it was, and just be violently ill. I had this weird pain in my sternum for the last year or something. Was having some kind of frightening looking bowel movements. Like there's some stuff going on. I'd been hit with my first felony charges. So my legal repercussions were getting more severe. And I woke up one day, my phone's blowing up. It's the it's the end of harvest. It's a super busy season. I've got active fermentations that need to be like monitored and taken care of. Like, it's a busy time. There's bottles all over my house. I had moved in there with a girlfriend a long time previously. It lasted for about 4 days, about 2 weeks before she took the mattress and the shower curtain. I just slept on the couch for a few months, My house was destroyed. There's like empty liquor bottles and wine bottles everywhere. There's my shotgun is like, I still had firearms at this point. There's like a loaded handgun on my nightstand. The shotgun's, the buttstock's broken. My whole wall of my bedroom's destroyed. I'm just frantically looking through all the bottles to find like, the last little bit just to propel me to the liquor store that's like a quarter mile down the street where I can go and like not look the dude in the eyes and ask for, a liter of Stoli or whatever. And I couldn't like leave my house, and I was looking out of the blinds, and I was totally freaked out and shaky, and my phone's blowing up from other guys at this co-op that I work at. And I had a moment of clarity. I didn't know that's what it was, but I had this like profound moment of clarity where it was just like, what has happened to me? I was like the crackhead looking for the rock. I was just a fiend for it. And picked up my phone. Dude, are you okay? Like, there's fruit flies all over your fermenters. Like, what, do you want us to do something? No, I'll be up there in a little bit. Go to the liquor store, get my bottle, have a couple highballs, get the courage to go put out some fires, rinse, repeat. And that's, I lost the business completely, which again was kind of a relief. Lost that house, was hiding out at my mom's, etc. And that's kind of what the last 2 years of my drinking looked like. Just a blackout, not knowing what time of day it was, drinking as much as I could, lying through my teeth, showing up in hospitals and detox. I ended up being hospitalized for this pain in my chest. It turned out it was necrotizing pancreatitis. Brutal. I'm diabetic from that still today. So yeah, the last 2 years were a nightmare. There were some brief periods of recovery, or sobriety, I should say, not recovery, like during that time, usually after an arrest or a hospitalization where I would just be like, really scared, and then try some medicinal marijuana and pop some Norcos, and then I'm back on the Modelo's and, back to the hard stuff. So it was bad. It was really, life had become a total nightmare. I had collections and a bunch of people after me for money. I was just hiding out at this girl's house in LA, hiding out from probation, hiding out from life, sneaking off to Rite Aid every morning, all shaky, and just kind of was in acceptance that like this is how it was going to be now, I guess. And maybe I would kill myself, or maybe like a miracle would happen. And the latter happened. And I had like 2 people left in my life, this poor girl I was dragging through everything, and my mom. So they staged a little intervention that I had actually in Ventura, and I was like super pissed. And I ended up going to rehab in town, like begrudgingly. I went and had my little romantic last, 3 cocktails, and went to rehab and was, in the corner of the circle with my arms crossed for a couple days. And then it was really cool. Like, I met some awesome people. I got physically well. I started eating solid food. We did like yoga and like field trips. And most importantly, I got introduced to AA. There was this dude there. He's my AA Eskimo. His name's Lonnie. He happened to be working there as a tech. And he pulled me aside like the first day. I thought he did this with everyone, but he didn't, and he just recognized that I was a real alcoholic, I guess. And he said, hey, dude, rehab, it's great that you're in rehab, but like this is only going to last for 30 days or however long your insurance pays for. So you're probably going to have to do more to stay sober. So I want you to come check out this meeting, the Junkyard Dogs. Come on, guys. And the Men Without Legs, and like, you got to get plugged into this AA thing, it works. And he was really cool, but I was like, thanks, dude. I said thank you, but knowing in my head, like, I don't know about all that. And there was a girl in rehab, and it was like her 17th rehab. She was like 10 years younger than me. She's rad. I think she's still sober. And I was just like, what a loser. Like, what is your problem? 17 rehabs? Like, I'm good. I get it. Like, I can't drink anymore. I understand. I had somewhat of a knowledge of my condition. And I even got a sponsor, a great, great dude, and attended meetings, and, just like would see the steps on the wall and think like, all right, I'm not going to talk about this, that, and this. Like, I'm never making amends to, like, my ex-boss. And I'm never going to make amends to my ex-girlfriend. I'm never going to sponsor anybody. I'm never going to lead a meeting. Like, I won't even read the freaking step 5. But I'll attend the meetings and I'll do like my version of the steps. And like somehow I got, like 4 months that way with just zero defense against the first drink. And what inevitably happened was I went up to do like a photo shoot. I made wine for one of my good friends, and he was doing a photo shoot for his like wine label at his uncle's ranch. And so I went up there, and I'm like 4 months sober and, cocky and hanging out in my 4-step, kind of, probably in the freaking first column. And had a little couple ounces of rosé in a glass for this photo shoot, and just gutted it. I didn't plan on drinking when I went up there, but I was just like, just boom, hit it. And I watched my girlfriend's face just turn white, And I was like, I'll reset my sober date. It's not a big deal. I'll call JP tomorrow. And drank plenty of wine that night, pinned a couple bottles that I had stashed at the house, and was right back to drinking vodka in the morning the next day. Just right back in it. And, another trip to rehab. I think I went hospital rehab that time. Hospital, lockdown psychiatric the next. And at this point, Lonnie would see me come back to this rehab, and I'd be all afraid to see him. Like, he's going to think I'm an idiot, and he's just like, bring it in. You're alive, dude. And I'm having a heart-to-heart with him, having a cigarette or something, and he said, why don't you just ask Darren to be your sponsor and do whatever he says? And I was pretty beat up, so I was willing to do that. And I knew this dude from the meetings, and he was like somebody I wanted to stay away from. Like, he took it really seriously, and he was like rah AA, and I didn't know that meant solution-oriented, recovered from alcoholism back then. I thought he was just really into AA. But he had recovered from a hopeless state of mind and body. And I heard him speak at our Gucci meeting, which is bizarre because my now wife, I had no idea who she was back then, was the secretary of the meeting. Someone had bailed to speak, and Darren stepped in as the replacement speaker. And I was in rehab, and they trucked us to the meeting, and I heard Darren share, and I couldn't believe it. Like, he was worse than me. He'd like taken alcoholism further down the road than I had. And he was like calm, chill, hilarious, confident, like successful. I saw him like peel off in his Range Rover. I'm like, how is that the same dude from the story? So that really hit me. And he talked about like how he would stand up in meetings drunk when someone talked about God and like, kick his chair over. I was like, that's crazy. This guy's way more against this program than I am. And so I met with him, and I was pretty beat up, and I said something like, yeah, I'm done this time, dude. And he said, bullshit. I know you have another drink in you, because I know I have another drink in you. And he said something to the effect of like, if you're an alcoholic, this isn't going to get better on its own. And like, you might have to do all the stuff that we do to stay sober. And like, no one had told me that. I'd heard for years mostly from friends and family, why did you drink again? And I didn't even know how to answer that. Or I heard, you have to stop drinking. You have to stop drinking, dude. You're going to die. And he didn't say that. He said, you're going to drink again, which is like that other part of step 1, right? It's like I have the physical allergy. I have the mental obsession. So I'm like allergic to the thing I can't live without, which is kind of the spiritual malady. But also, it's saying that like, if I don't have a psychic change, I will drink again. So you can't take step 1 without admitting that like, okay, if I don't get to work, I'm going to drink again, and whatever that looks like for you. So anyways, we got to work, and I remember he told me, how are you with prayer? And I was like, never really done it. Aside from like the one eye open, driving home, Hail Marys. And he said, he's like, I want you to start praying. It can be whatever you want. You can use this one if you want. God, please keep me sober today, whatever you are. At the end of the day, I want you to hit your knees and say, God, thank you for keeping me sober today, whatever you are. And I was desperate enough to do that, man. I wasn't desperate enough to do that like my last few times in rehab. I was just too cool for it. I remember telling people, like, I can't do it. They're just like, well, you just have to do it. It's just an action you take. It's like, you don't understand. I can't do it. And alcohol beat me into a point of being willing to do it. So we got to work, and I hammered through my four-step. It was kind of fun. He told me to pretend it was a hit list. And, it's like it snowballed pretty quick. And I had, like, everyone I knew was on there, even my dearest friends and family members. Tons of people I didn't know were on there, celebrities, politicians. It was great. And Darren was right. The night before my fifth step, with no intention of drinking, I went to a buddy's house. I had no business doing this. I don't think I told him I did it, but I went to like a dinner party at my buddy's house, who's not an alcoholic and has a big, beautiful liquor cabinet in Montecito, successful friend of mine. And one minute I'm like flapping my gums about rehab and recovery, and the next minute I'm just pinning a bottle of wine behind his back. No intention, just knee-jerk reaction. And then I'm pulling off the whiskey bottle when he's not looking, and then I'm like, oh shit, I should like smoke some weed with him to like make him think I'm not drunk. And it's like I got my fifth step in the morning with Darren, and I just wanted to die. Like I just wanted to die, man. It wasn't even fun like getting drunk anymore. It was just, at that point I drank to anesthetize myself. I should have been I'm a heroin addict, I think, at heart. I should have been, man. Because when I got a taste of that in the hospital, a little intravenous Dilaudid. Hey, the co-founders talked about drugs too, so chill out. It was like, oh, this is why people are heroin. It was like everything melted around me, and I was just like, that's how I drank in the end. So it was a nightmare, and I was like, maybe I didn't really sleep, and I was like, oh, maybe I'll just go to the fifth step. And I called Darren, and I was like, dude. He's like, what's up, mate? I was like, I got loaded last night. And all he said was, oh, mate, you might be an alcoholic. And he said something like, we don't have to do it today, man, but like, call me when you're ready, which was genius, because I don't know. I don't know if you knew that I had to go get my butt kicked one more time, but I did. And I remember going to the liquor store and getting a bottle of Jameson, and then I vaguely remember breaking into my neighbor's house to steal his booze. They had started locking the door because I would just walk in and help myself. And I came to in handcuffs like on a Wednesday. We were supposed to do the fifth step on a Sunday. And I called Lonnie in a blackout and told him I was going to kill myself. And I mean, it's just ridiculous and horrific. So came to in handcuffs, and this time I got to stay in jail a couple extra days, which was my first stay, Felt pretty seasoned. Like 3 days in jail, it was miserable. And I got in front of the judge, and they said, you can stay in jail or you can go to sober living. And I was finally willing to do the sober living thing. So I landed at Scott's house and just still shaky and sick. And I went to the old apartment where I had been arrested, the scene of the crime, to get some clothes, and everything was still destroyed. There was like holes in drywall, and the TV was mangled, and it was just awful. And I sat in my car, and I had this anklet on, and my pancreas is kind of inflamed. And it like wasn't the worst criminal charges I had. It wasn't the worst, withdrawal symptoms I've had. But for the first time, I felt like I can't drink anymore, and I can't be sober, and I just felt trapped in reality. I reached the jumping off point, and it was a scary place to be, and I've kind of flirted with that idea of killing myself. Thank you. And I don't think I really had the balls to do it, not sober at least. And then I thought about I couldn't put my mom through that again. And then the next thought was like, I haven't given AA a fair shot. I haven't really done the deal, which was true. I just done the classic, like, kind of 3 and out, sat in my 4-step. And Lonnie had told me, get over the hump, dude. Like, get over the 5th step hump. And so I got with Darren. He left me a message when I was in jail. And he's like, something's happened, mate, but, when you're ready, give me a call. And so I got with him, and we picked up where we left off, and I added to my 4th step. And I met with him on the beach and read him this huge list of stuff. And he sat there and nodded and told him some stuff that I wasn't planning on telling anybody. And he just didn't even flinch, dude. Is that it? Chuckled at some stuff that I didn't think he would chuckle at. And I just had this feeling that, like, that information wasn't going anywhere and that this wasn't the first one that he'd heard. And I felt kind of weird after that. And he's like, don't worry about it, mate. Like, the juice was a 9 for me. Just keep going. Trust the process. But I felt like I'd earned my seat in AA. Like, I'd completed a task, and it had been a while since I'd, like, followed through with something I said I was going to do. So it gave me momentum, and we didn't waste time. And I read 6 and 7 in the 12 and 12, and we got together. I pointed out my defects of character in the 4th column and on the sex inventory. I was willing to have them removed. I didn't know how tall of an order that was going to be and how lifelong of steps 6 and 7 are. Thank God. But that didn't matter at the time. A basic understanding was all that was necessary. And then I transferred my list over to my new 8-step list, and I added a bunch of people to it. And it was like all the people I owed money to, everybody that I'd caused concern, everybody I'd brought out the worst in, everybody that I'd continually strained the patience of. This is the same stuff I tell my guys that my sponsor told me. And I knew who those people were. The 8-step was like a day for me. It was just sitting down and finally getting it out on paper. I was taking inventory every morning for years in my bed when the madness was upon me. I just followed it up with like a drink, So I got it all on paper, and we met up. And I think it was like 3 p.m., and I had my little mandated court class coming up at 5. And he very carefully laid out the plan for amends and told me what I should and shouldn't say, and even gave me a little template of what to say. And then he, patted me on the ass and said, I want you to make 6 today, mate. And I'm like looking at my watch. And so I, scampered over to a bar that I'd been 86 from, Durf's, if anybody knows. It's hard to get 86 from Durf's. Some tweaker like pulled a knife on me, and I just told him, all drunk, modeling, I told him to just do it, just kill me, bro. And so I got an 86 from there. And so I went in. I needed like some warm-up amends, So I went in there, and I said, hey, is there a manager or something here? And they're like, what's up, dude? And I said, hey, a couple months ago, I got 86 from here, and I disrespected your place. I got hammered drunk like I usually did, and I got in a fight out on the patio, and I just want to let you know that it was wrong of me to disrespect your establishment. I never want to treat this place or anywhere else like that. I'm living my life differently today. Is there anything else I can do to make this right? And they were like, just stay out of here, dude. I went to one more bar and paid off a little bar tab there. I would go in there. When I drank, my girlfriend at the time would just take my wallet, so I'd have to get creative with drinking. So I'd go there and be like, oh, I forgot can I get a... And they would hook me up, so I went and paid my bar tab. And then I knocked on my neighbor's door. This dude, Vern, and he answered the door, and he'd seen me leave in handcuffs. He'd seen me leave the house in ambulances. And he's like, what's up, dude? And I said, hey, can I have a minute of your time? And he said, sure. And I said, a couple weeks ago, I broke into your house. I remember like shimmying a window open, and I grabbed a bottle of Svedka out of the freezer, and I copped a couple bottles of wine. And I want you to know that it was wrong of me to do that. And I'm really sorry for disrespecting you that way, man, and for violating your home. And I never want to treat you that way again. I'm living my life differently today. Here's $70. I think that covers it. Is there anything else I can do to make this right? And he just gave me a hug and was like, dude, just don't die. Like, get better, man. And it was really powerful. And it gave me momentum to like make some other scary amends. And in a matter of a couple days, like I noticed something was happening. The first thing I noticed was I went to make an amends at my friend's little tap room. It's like a little bar. And I was kind of nervous to be around liquor, but I was doing God's will, man. And I left, we had a great conversation, and I said my piece, and I left, and I realized that like magnetism that alcohol had, it wasn't there when I was at the bar. Like I didn't have that urge to just like order a double shot and hammer it. It was just no big deal. It had been removed, and it was like already evident, and I was sold. I was sold, dude. I went from being a total skeptic to like understanding what step 2 meant, and to like start to feel the promises. And when I woke up in the mornings, like my head wasn't just spinning. I wasn't having the imaginary, fights in the shower. I was like kind of calm, and I was kind of enjoying my days, and I was sold on the program. And my sponsor took me through 10 and 11. We met up, and he said, "You've recovered from alcoholism." And I kind of couldn't believe it. It's like, damn, that's all it was. I thought the steps were going to be like this gnarly, huge thing, and it just felt that way because I was so used to only doing exactly what I wanted to do whenever I wanted to do it. And when I live that way, I live in hell. I can't live that way. And he showed me the guaranteed version of sobriety, which was 10 and 11, and then we quickly talked about. He told me sponsorship's not optional. Find someone to help. All you need to do is reach your hand out and make these guys feel welcome. That's it. And sure enough, some poor guy, Tom, asked me to sponsor him. And I'm still doing all that same stuff, really. I'm still doing all that same stuff. I'm still on the high. In fact, the high gets better over time. A fellowship has grown up around me. One of those guys is here. I get to sponsor dudes and help, walk them through this process. And then at the end of it, we're just walking through together, staying transparent with each other, and just skipping along the road of happy destiny. And it's not why I came here. I didn't want friends. I didn't want fellowship. I didn't want God. And I got these amazing gifts, along with this amazing life as a side effect of this thing. I met my wife in the rooms. She's way out of my league. We have a 19-month-old. Woof. We have a 19-month-old. He's like the coolest. He's my favorite person. He's never seen us fight. He's never seen us drunk. I wouldn't have any of it without this program. And I'll just sum it up with, when I do the steps, I get that feeling that I sought and like that experience that I had the first time I drank. And it sounds corny, but I chased that my whole drinking career, and I never quite landed it. Maybe a couple times, if there was like some other substances involved, I would accidentally just be in that zone where I like had some game all night and didn't overshoot the mark too bad. But 99% of the time, I always effed it up. And that's not what I was after when I drank. It's just what I got. When I do the steps, I get to feel that confidence. I get to feel that calm and to be in the moment, and the colors are brighter, and the music sounds better. But instead of my life deteriorating around me, everything just grows. Thank you.
Let's thank our speaker again one more time, Blake. We welcome you to return next.